gathering. So good to see everyone and welcome. I'm David Ware and I'm a member of the clergy team here at the Church of the Redeemer, and this is our latest installment of the Voices series, which invites artists and thinkers, writers, scientists, anyone who really is engaged with the art of being human to come and be with us and help us to more fully be who we're called to be. Tonight it's my pleasure, my phone is not cooperating, my pleasure to welcome Charles Lattimore Howard, Chaz. I wish I had a name like Charles Lattimore Howard. That's just so beautiful. I'll just say a couple of words and then invite him to come up. Dr. Howard is the university chaplain at the University of Pennsylvania, which is also his alma mater. Prior to his return to Penn, he served in both hospital and hospice chaplaincies. And you all will probably remember that our new colleague, Keith Johnson, also comes to us from hospital and hospice chaplaincies. His writing has been featured in such publications as Black Theology and International Journal, Daily Good, Sojourners Magazine, Christianity Today, Chronicle of Higher Education, the Huffington Post, the Christian Century, the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Forward, and Slate. He's the editor of The Souls of Poor Folk, a text which explores new ways of considering homelessness and poverty, and the author of several books, The Awe and the Awful, a collection of poetry, Black Theology as Mass Motion Reign, which is a collection of essays inviting us to go deep with God, The Bottom, and most recently, Uncovering Your Path. I understand that the last time that Chaz spoke at Gilman School, that the roof was blown off. So it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Chaz Howard.
Good evening, everybody. It is wonderful to see you all, and so great to see so many familiar faces here. I just got to express my gratitude to Reverend Ware and everyone here at this beautiful, beautiful church. You're doing so many things right here. It's such a special, special place. And just a delight and a blessing to be here with you all. And thank you, everybody, for taking time to come out on a school night, on a work night. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to my friends, my teachers from the Gilman School. Headmaster Smythe from Gilman is here. Really good to see you here, sir. Thank you for all you do to take care of our kids every day. And two of my teachers, who I will say a little bit more about a little bit later, but Mr. Foreman and Mr. Holly, who I mean it when I say I wouldn't be here without you. So thank you, you both. Last shout out, I promise, one of our surrogate parents here, affectionately known as Mama Bird, who raised so many of me and my guys here. Just grateful for you. I wanted to talk a little bit about discernment. And it's a word that we don't always use, discernment. And I try to explore this in a book called, it's outside here, it's called Uncovering Your Path. And I have to thank our colleagues from Ivy Bookshop who are here as well. Amanda Musoff is out in the back selling the books. Really grateful for her. And I begin each chapter with a quote. And there's one quote that I want to share that I think a lot about when I'm trying to make a decision, when I'm trying to figure out what the next right move is. And it's a quote by a Carmelite nun named Teresa of Avila. And the quote says, "Remember, if you want to make progress on the path and ascend to the places you have longed for, the important thing is not to think much, but to love much. So do whatever most kindles love in you." If you remember nothing else from this time. Remember the words of Teresa of Avila. Do whatever most kindles love in you. I was having a conversation with someone on a podcast, this wonderful author named Lisa Sharon Harper. And she was interviewing me about the book, and she's like, look, Chaz, I have to ask you, like, it's such a weird time to write a book about discernment. The world is on fire right now. There are wars, there is deep division in this country. We are struggling today, we're dealing with sort of government being closed, government shutdown, and you're writing a book on discernment. And she literally said, read the room. You're writing a book on like figuring out your path and stuff, and people are trying to survive right now. Why this book right now? And I was a little surprised because this wasn't one of the questions she sent me in advance before our interview. But then I thought to myself, it's exactly the right moment for discernment. As we wrestle with really heavy things in our lives, it's important to know how to make decisions. And not just that, how to make the decision of how are we as individuals called to respond to the challenges that are before us. It's very easy to kind of just put our heads down and hope that the clouds pass by, and the clouds will pass by. It's easy to leave the work of healing, of rebuilding, all of that to others. But maybe each of us is called to do something right now, be it a vocational calling, be it some small thing we can do in our families and communities. And how do we decide what is next? How can we hear what is kindling love in our hearts? I get to work with 18 to 22-year-olds, really 18 to 30-year-olds in college every single day. And I find that they are often trying to figure out what to do. You know, I think so we ask high school kids to have it all figured out. What are you going to major? What do you want to do with your lives? And these 16, 17-year-olds sort of tell us, but then they get there and they try to figure it out. And it's a question that I like to sort of think about. How do we make decisions? And there's a lot of ways that we make decisions. Some people make like a pro-con list. You know, should I do it or should I not do it? Here's the pros of if I decide to apply to this job, if I apply to this college, if I take this offer, here are the pros, the good things that would happen. Well, here are the cons here, and if there are more pros than cons, let's do it. Makes some good sense there. Or sometimes we talk to trusted advisors. There are people in this room who I have called asking advice for. Advisors and friends, like, hey, what do you think about this thing I'm thinking about? What do you think about that? And we often get great advice from people we love. That's a tried and true way of doing it. Some people do like a skills assessment or like a gift assessment, and very much in high school we do this. We sort of think about the things we're good at. And if you're good at math, maybe you should be an accountant. Or if you're really good at talking, you should probably be a lawyer. Or if you're actually really skilled with your hands, a surgeon. Or you're really good, the things we're good at, maybe that's what we're supposed to do. There's some people who do reverse goal setting, career mapping, different ways of making decisions. But there is a big difference between decision making and discernment. Not that one is better than the other, but they're very different. Decision making, in one sense, is me making the call. Discernment, some would say, is the answer coming from without or maybe coming from our hearts. Decision making happens up here, and there are times where we need to make decisions. And there are times where we are called to discern where our hearts are inviting us, where something outside of us is pulling us somewhere, where I see something and it melts me and I burst into tears and suddenly my path changes, or it feels like life or the divine is calling us to do something very different from what I thought made sense. This is one of the beautiful things I think about many religious leaders, where they're called to kind of take some big step outside. This is Moses leaving Pharaoh's palace to go outside, out into the wilderness, and then to ultimately be with enslaved Hebrews, leaving there, following a different path. This is the Buddha who grows up in his father's home, not seeing suffering and choosing to step outside of that and following a different path. This is Jesus coming down, robing God's self in humanity, and taking a very different path from the path that people would have expected. Discernment is a path that comes from outside of us. Discernment is also different than deciding because discernment is a type of uncovering. It's not just figuring it out. Pro-con list, debate, that figures it out. Discernment is kind of an uncovering thing. It's seeing where the path leads us as opposed to just sort of chopping through the forest and finding our way there. And I try to get at this through telling a couple different stories in the book. And if it's okay, I'd like to share a couple of the stories that have spoken to me over time. I begin the book by telling a story about Shona sculptures. I have 3 daughters, and believe it or not, my oldest just turned 21 last week, which is, I still can't make sense of that. I'm also not at peace with that, but she's also a senior, trying to figure out her own path, whatever. My middle daughter spent part of the summer in Zimbabwe, and she met individuals from the Shona culture there in this beautiful country. And Shona artists, Shona sculptors, are a famous type of artists. They use a beautiful type of rock to create these beautiful sculptures that are famous around the world. And the way that they make this art is very fascinating. The artists talk about holding a stone and letting the work of art within it reveal itself to them. And then once they can sort of see within the stone, they begin to chip away at it and free that which is within. Don't miss this. This is very different from, I have an idea of what I want to build and what I want to sculpt. I'm going to create a small little beautiful thing here, and I find the rock and I'm going to work at it. This involves a slow listening, something that we're not very good at nowadays. We kind of want to know right now. We demand that people know right now. But this process of Shona, holding the stone and letting it reveal itself, and then freeing it. Michelangelo talks about this too. That sort of seeing something, seeing an angel within the rock there, and then chipping away and freeing it from itself. This is something we can invite young people, invite ourselves to. Being patient with it. The word says love is patient. Do whatever most kindles love in your hearts, and love is patient, waiting for the path to reveal itself to us. It is much harder that way. But there's a reason why Shona sculptors are the best in the world. There's another story. I had a friend, his name is Nipun Mehta, this brilliant, brilliant brother from the Bay Area, and he's kind of one of the leaders of this concept called gift economy. It encourages people to kind of really give away to work for free, which is so counterintuitive. But it trusts that whatever we need will be given to us. And he tells a story. He came to visit a couple years ago, and I was sort of trying to decide. I had this opportunity to maybe transition from being chaplain at Penn to another opportunity at another school to be chaplain there, and I really wasn't sure. I said, Nipun, brother, any advice, man? And he says, Chaz, have you heard the story about the monks and the mango tree? And I'm like, of course I haven't heard the story about them. Who's heard the story about the monks and the mango tree? I have not heard this story, but I'd love to hear it, says Chaz. There were a group of new monks who joined a monastery. And the abbot of the monastery says, come on in, young novices. And he gives them the tour of the space, and this is where we stay, and this is where we eat. And he goes to the courtyard in the middle of the monastery, and there is a grove of beautiful, lush mango trees in there. And he says, you may eat from any of these mango trees that you like. All you have to do is hold out your hand. But you're not allowed to climb the trees. You're not allowed to shake the trees. Be open-handed and trust that the fruit that is for you will fall into your hands. The Shona sculptures demand a patience. The mango trees demand a trust. Nipun talks about the monks aren't supposed to move to the right a little bit so that they can catch this one here. You can't sort of nudge the tree a little bit so that it falls in your hand there. No, no, no. Trust that that which is for you will fall to you. That is a very different way of doing life, where we are told, like, if you want it, go get it. And there's nothing wrong with sort of having goals. I think there's something to it by encouraging people to chase dreams. I hear that. It's very different than discernment. Discernment invites a trust that the one who plants these trees and grows them above us loves us enough to let the fruit fall to us. And it's true. I promise you. If you hold your hand out, it will fall into your hands. There's another story I think a lot about. I have found in life that I have been a much better basketball coach than I was basketball player. And there are guys in this room who I enjoyed torching on the court back in the day, but I was never the basketball player that I was in my mind. And some of the guys who taught me how to play basketball are in this room right now too, Coach Ali. But one of the joys that I have had of being a dad has been the opportunity to coach my kids in basketball. I told you I have three girls. One of those three is actually really good. The other two are good teammates. And my middle daughter's team was tough. Man, she's my scrapper. She's tough. And I loved coaching her. And one of the things I found was that we can teach a kid how to shoot a layup. We can work on shooting form. We can teach her the rules of the game. But the hardest thing I found about coaching young people is helping them make decisions. And I'll show you how it plays out. First or second year that they're playing basketball, we have the 5 girls out there, and a girl is dribbling down the court, and everyone starts yelling at them, "Pass it, pass the ball, pass it over here." And their parents are on the sideline, "Shoot it, honey, shoot the ball over there, do it. And coach is like, "Run play number 3, run number 3, run to number 3." And the kid freezes. And you can almost see them doing the math in their head. Should I pass it to my best friend over there? Because if I don't pass it, she's going to think I don't like her anymore, and we're not going to be friends anymore. Or should I pass it to that girl over there? Because she scored like 10 points already, and if I pass it to her, we're going to win this game. Or should I shoot it myself? Because I really want mom and dad to be proud of me. I really want them to think that I'm doing a good job, and I kind of want to go for it. Or should I listen to coach? Because coach is going to be mad at us if we don't run the play. And it takes all that time, and they're sort of holding, and everyone pass it back, and it is paralyzing. It's really hard to make decisions. And I think a lot of young people feel that sometimes too. You should really go to this college. You should definitely do this one. No, you should do this over here. You should actually think about going to the military. You should do a different. And their parents and grandparents and friends and the media. It's a lot. It's a lot for adults. How do we teach people to make those decisions? There's a lot of voices in our heads. I think one thing that we try to encourage our players to do is to slow the game down and get quiet. It is a crazy time in our world. It's also a really loud time in our world. We are like always plugged in. I get notifications all the time, and the TV's on, the internet, and there's emails and text and WhatsApps and this thing and social media, and then all. It's loud, and there's a lot to do, and I'm always thinking about what's happening overseas and what's happening in DC and what's happening over here, and I'm thinking about my kids and my parents, like all this. Like, it's just a lot. Whew. How can we quiet ourselves so we can hear our hearts? So we can hear the call. We do this drill with our players, and it's called creatively the decision-making drill. That's all we call it. And we have two players, one girl with the ball, another teammate there, and one coach is playing defense. And we say, bring the ball down. And if the coach decides to cover the girl who's dribbling the ball, your teammate is open, pass to your teammate, they will go on and score. Run it again. The two girls come down. If the coach covers the teammate who doesn't have the ball, and you're dribbling in and the lane is wide open, go right ahead, the way is clear for you. And we try to show them sometimes what you're supposed to do is what opens up for you. Sometimes the path is what is most gentle, what is easiest, where you're flowing into. I see a lot of players try to force the ball. They really want to pass to their best friend, and there are like three kids covering them, and your hair hit, and they throw kind of a high ball in the sky over there, it always gets stolen, and they're trying to force it, or they think that they're the next Steph Curry or LeBron, and they're whatever, they think that they're Caitlin Clark, and they can take on 5 players, and they're doing fadeaways, and they force it, as opposed to what is opening up for you. It's not always the path, but very often, when the way is made clear. This is a concept from our Quaker siblings in the Society of Friends. Very often this concept of if the way is made clear, that's the path for you. Don't overthink it. Sometimes if the lane opens up, that's for you. Do whatever most kindles love in you. A couple things, and then I'd love to open it up for a little conversation or questions. It is a lot easier said than done, figuring out what the next right move is. But there are little things we can do to make it easier. One thing that I've begun in the last couple of years is I have a dog. His name is Langston. He is a rascal. He's sweet, but he is a handful. And my girls asked for this dog and said, they're going to walk him and feed him and all that stuff. And of course they don't. I'm the one who walks this dog all the time, every single morning. But I'm thankful for it. And so 5:30 a.m. every morning, I'm walking Langston. And I used to kind of put my headphones in and listen to a book on tape or listen to my music or a podcast or something. And I've been blessed by that. I love reading books that kind of build me up. It's just a gift. But the last couple of years, I have felt led to have these walks silently. Silence is such a gift. And a part of it is just enjoying the sounds of the crickets, the cars going by, the birds, the dogs barking, the sound of my breath, my heart. But in that quiet, I find that I'm hearing a lot more. It's a small thing that we can do on our commutes, on our walks, while we're doing a chore around the house, to just invite a little bit more quiet into your life. And it could feel super awkward, but if you let yourself rest into the silence, what a gift. I think there's an opportunity to hear there. Second thing, the importance of discerning in community. I referenced our Quaker siblings. I'm Episcopalian. It's so good to be in an Episcopal church. Thank you. But I'm in Philadelphia, where there are so many Quaker meeting houses as well, and they have such a gift to our world. They have this thing called clearness committees, If you haven't learned, I encourage you to research it. And what they do is sometimes someone may have an idea of, I'm thinking about proposing to the person I'm dating, or I'm thinking about moving across the country, and they bring it to a group of trusted peers, elders, others in the community, and they will hold this question together. What a gift for like a congregation to do, to share life like that. And they will try to see clarity together by asking questions of one another. They discern in community. But one doesn't have to be a Quaker to discern like that. It is such a gift to see other people. I'm a black man who has gone to predominantly white institutions my entire life. And I'm grateful for the amazing educations that I have received. But there have been times in my life where I didn't feel seen. There was a man at my college, we called him Brother Rob, and every time I would see him walking up and down the main stretch of campus, he would say, "Young King, I see you. I see you, young King." And for him to sort of call a black man that, so beautiful. This is also what Mr. Foreman and Mr. Holly, Mama Bird sort of did for me and so many of us too. When I told them, hey, I'm thinking about going to seminary, I think I might want to go into ministry. And for them to say, I could see that. Yeah, makes sense. Or when I was thinking about, hey, I'm thinking about applying to Penn. And our college counselor discouraged me from doing that. You know who encouraged me? A Penn alum named Mr. Holly. Mr. Foreman, who wrote a recommendation for me to kind of go there. It's so important for us to see, really see people, and to encourage them along the way. To sort of point and say, did you ever think about, so I take rivalries very seriously. I'm not friends with anybody from McDonough. I don't like anyone from Pittsburgh. And Penn's big rival is Princeton. I apologize to any Princetonians in the room. All love. But there was this one really good study that came out of Princeton. They're good, one thing. And they did a study about women in leadership. And they found that for a little while, there were more, so their student body was 50-50, people who identify as men and identify as women. But the people in leadership positions on campus were disproportionately boys and men. Head of the student council, editor of the newspaper, people who were applying to be Rhodes Scholars, people who were the heads of different eating clubs. It was like 75-25 men. And so the university wanted to do a study, what is going on here? It's about 10 years ago. What they found was the women who ended up applying to those leadership positions had one big thing in common. They had someone in their lives nudge them and say, I think you would be great on student council. Or, hey, you're doing a great job here. I think you should apply for a Fulbright. Or, you know what? You're the best writer in this room. Why aren't you the editor of the paper? They had someone in their lives see them and see their potential. And they said, yeah, okay, I'll apply. I think that transcends gender. It's such a gift to sort of encourage a young person into who they are, to help them see their path. So important. And yet one of the things that is stopping young people from being who they are supposed to be is fear. I had two colleagues, psychologists named Tony Rothstein and Janet Hibbs. They wrote a book called The Stressed Years of Their Lives. It's a play on the phrase, the best years of their lives. And I commend the book to you. And what they found was people who are high-achieving young people in high school and college, their greatest challenges that they're experiencing are a destructive perfectionism and a fear of failure. part of what they were getting at, though, is this idea of like it's so hard to get into elite colleges, and in order to do that, you have to have almost perfect grades, and you have to have a great SAT score, and a perfect essay with no typos, and great recommendations, and just the right kind of internships and summer projects here. And I also have to be perfect in like my social life. I have to have the perfect social media feed. And if I don't, then I'm not going to get into the college I want to get into. And I'm not going to get into grad school. I'm not going to get the job. I'm not going to have enough money. I'm not going to be living in the right neighborhood. And if I'm weird on then, no one's going to be my friend. No one's going to date me on, be alone my whole life. I have to be perfect. And that strain and stress, it just wears young people out, and they are scared to fail. They're afraid. It's hard being a young person right now. Hard being you right now. What do we do with that fear? I'll tell one last basketball story. I coached this young player. I'll call her Dawn. Tribute to Dawn Staley, but it wasn't Dawn Staley, but shout out to Dawn Staley. She was like the best practice player I've ever coached. I mean, just a like gifted handle, court vision. She could sort of see everything. Team player, dove on the ground for loose balls, loved the game. Just an awesome person to coach. Except at the games, she was a different person. And I would see her play, and like she would just kind of like make mistakes and dribble the ball off her leg and yell at her teammates, and just a very different player. And she would make a mistake and look up at the stands, and she would kind of dribble and she would freeze and look up at the stands. And after a while, my other coach would sort of try to follow her eyes and saw her looking at her parents, who were sort of sitting in the stands like this and getting mad every single time she made a mistake. It was like a 10-year-old kid. One game, she sort of made some mistake, subs herself out and comes and sits down, puts her hand in her face and says, "I'm sorry, coach, I understand if you don't want me to play anymore." At halftime, one of my fellow coaches pulled her aside and talked to her. And she kind of went off about like, "I'm terrible, I'm bad," and like in tears. And he said, "Dawn, we love you no matter what. It's a joy to coach you. Whether you're scoring 20 points and 10 assists or 0 points and 0 assists, we love you. This is like a 10-year-old kids basketball league. I don't eat off this job. I get a t-shirt at the end of the season. It's fine. None of y'all are going pro. it's okay. We love to coach you and want you to play a beautiful game." Talked to her parents. She got a sports psychologist and began to play free without fear of making mistakes. If we can move without fear, remembering that you are loved no matter what, whether you do an amazing vocational thing or whether nobody knows your name, whether you mess up at what you're trying to do or whether you are a rock star, you can do some amazing things. But we have to fight through the fear. The title of the book is Uncovering Your Path, and that comes from, and this is my last story. My wife and I, we purchased a house, and it was a fixer-upper on a nice street. It was like the beat home on a really nice block. And the couple that lived there before us had lived there for 60 years. They raised 3 kids, too, in that place, but the house kind of got away from them. And it was a gift. It allowed us to kind of buy a house that we probably couldn't have afforded otherwise. Part of the reason I wanted to buy it, I looked at the map and saw there was a creek in the back of the house. And I love water. I was born downtown right near the harbor. It's kind of in my soul. And when we got there, we go in the backyard, and it's like a jungle. I just can't see anything. There was this old rotted fence there. So we took the fence down, replaced it, and began that summer project of kind of like carving our way down there to get to and pull the weeds up and pull out kind of trees that grew up. And I don't like chopping down stuff, but these were overgrown weeds and grass and all stuff. And found the creek. And a part of my project that summer was I want to lay a path down to this creek so I can walk down there and not slip in the mud and just play by the water, and it was awesome. So I went to Lowe's, and I bought all these little like perfect stones, and I kind of found there, and I had my little shovel, and I get on my knees, and I'm digging the first hole, and ding, 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 ding. There was a rock there. I cover it off, and I'll just use that one instead, and it's one less Lowe's thing. So I go a little further and dig, and ding, 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 ding. There's another stone. This is great. And I keep going below the soil and all the overgrowth. There was already a path. There was already a path laid out for us. All we had to do was uncover it and then find the courage to walk it. This is true for everyone here. I believe that the one who made you has not forgotten you. This great big God of the universe who created all the stars and sun and everything also cares about you and me individually and has not forsaken you. And even with everything going on, sees you and knows your name and has a path laid out for all of us. All we have to do is uncover it and find the courage to walk it. I really appreciate you all listening to me, and would love to have a little conversation before we call it a night. Thank you so much.
Chaz, thank you so much. We have a number of people who are joining us on the live stream, and we're also making a recording. And
everybody.
So I'm going to invite everyone who would like to ask a question or make a comment to come here so that our friends who are not here with us can hear you and enjoy it. So
Thank you, sir. Please.
That was wonderful. It has me thinking about a lot of things. Discerning my path right now in my work is really challenging. I work with the homeless in Baltimore City.
Thank you.
And I work for a large organization that is, in the firing line of potential cuts to housing and caps on permanent housing and major impacts to the homeless services structure. And it is really hard to find peace right now. So I'm really glad I came tonight when I saw this. I made this decision today. I thought this was a really appropriate thing for me to come to, so I'm really glad. I guess my question to you, I love this idea that the path will be laid out for you. Just be quiet enough or be attentive enough to find that path or let it show itself. But man, right now, it is really hard to trust that.
Yeah.
It is really hard to trust that. Everything feels unstable. And, I'm trying to just one day at a time.
One day at a time.
One day at a time. And be there for the people I work with and work for. But anything that you could share, I don't know if I have a question. It's more of a conversation.
I hear you.
About how to discern in such a way that maybe the stability comes in a different way than I might have thought it would.
Yes.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It's a great question. First, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And, I know it can feel trite to hear, but thank you for the way you are serving people on the margins right now. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing you're doing. Two things come to mind. I think the first is, you said one day at a time, which is such an important phrase for all of us in recovery. And I want to come back to that in a second. But it also reminds us that there is big discernment and then there's small discernment. The big discernment is, what am I supposed to do in my life? And should I make this big move? And then there's what am I called to do today? Right now, and there's a situation at work or with my family or on my block, and we could make a decision there, or we could also kind of do the kind of discerning process about the moment, which is very hard to do, but an important posture. The other thing, though, is, I'm telling these stories about like kind of gentle discernment and like let it reveal itself and the fruit's going to fall in your hands and let it open up for you and be quiet and like the kind of like peaceful, beautiful discernment. But sometimes there is like painful discernment. This wonderful priest author, I bet many of you have heard of him, named Henry Nouwen, Henri Nouwen, Catholic, I think Dutch Catholic priest. If you have not read him, read everything by him. He does not miss. Just an amazing, and they're like 50 books by him. Read everything by Henry Nouwen. One of the most beautiful books that he wrote was called The Wounded Healer. The Wounded Healer. And in many ways, it's a play on who Jesus is. Christians believe we are healed by Jesus' wounds. Jesus is sort of wounded in his hands and feet and side and dies for us so that we can ultimately be healed from sin. And it's a beautiful, the wounded healer. But it's also this concept that all of us can be wounded healers. And part of what he's getting at is sometimes the pain in our lives can speak to the calling on our lives. A real example that he talks about, for example, is this concept of those of us who've struggled with addiction. And addiction is so hard to shake sometimes. But if you can beat it, sometimes the best people to help those struggling with addiction are those who have gotten through it, who are in recovery themselves. Who can speak to that temptation better than when you get that urge or that itch? It's someone who has sort of felt it. In many ways, this has been true in my life. So, I don't mean to sob story, but after 5th grade at Gilman, my mom passed away. And Gilman loved me through that. And just a quick tangent, my family had no money after that. And Gilman let me go for free all those years. I never forgot that. And right after that, my dad died, right after high school. I was like an orphan all of a sudden at 18. Like, it rocked my world, fundamentally changed like everything in my universe. In so many ways, though, I am who I am because of that. Those wounds allow me to be a very different type of chaplain. Every single year I have students who lose parents. Every single year, sadly. And when I sit with them, I connect I feel it in a different way. And there's no right thing to say, but our hearts are connecting there. And when I see the grief in the world, like I feel that. Those wounds, not the kind of beautiful discernment, but the pain allowed me to kind of be there. I say that because there's a lot of pain right now. There are people who have lost their jobs for a range of reasons, but particularly, with the government shutdown, this is happening, and other ways, or the challenging financial stuff that we're dealing with, or maybe a mistake they made. Sometimes that's the best thing that ever happens to them. It sure doesn't feel like that day 2. But if we can sort of zoom out a little bit, maybe it's an opening for a new chapter. That doesn't mean it doesn't sting and how awful it is and it's unjust and it's terrible. But maybe that break allows us, maybe that death allows for a new type of resurrection in our lives. If we allow it to happen. I guess we're in a church, I can do this. This is so true about Christianity. The cycle of death and resurrection. Death on Friday, resurrection on Sunday. And it's not just Jesus, and it's not just sort of after we die, we'll resurrect in glory. This is true like in our lives. This idea of resurrection. If we plug into it, even the most violent, cruel death can bring new life. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing that can be true for all of us. Resurrection. Any other thoughts or questions? Any other thoughts or questions, I should say?
Good evening, fine sir. My name is Carlo Young. Nice to meet you. So, Chaz and I happen to be contemporaries at the Gilman School. He also officiated my wedding 20 years ago. So much appreciation for you being here.
Did you ever pay me for that wedding? You get like 10 books out back. You need to...
I got you. There's an author, I was in Mr. Holly's English class, and there's an author by the name of Samuel Langhorne Clemens. Some people call him Mark Twain. And he says, his saying that's attributed to him, that basically says, the two most important days of your life. The day you're born, a lot of people end that sentence with the day you die, and that's not it. It's the day you're born and the day you find out why. The day you find out why. And you gave kind of the whole conversation relative to discernment, Chaz. What are the cues? Like I think about, I'm a business person, but I'm also a missionary kind of at heart. And I think about IQ, EQ, BQ, BQ, bodily quotient, kind of how my gut is attached to kind of the higher power. But what are the cues if someone's trying to figure out their purpose? And I think I figured out mine pretty early, in partnership actually with you. We started a high school program together called Jabali, the Gilman Black Alumni Leadership Institute. So I think I figured out my purpose as it ties to education and young people and even adult learners. But what are the cues, tangible cues, do you think people should be paying attention to help them derive their purpose?
A beautiful question, man. And Carlo, there are few people who've done more for young people than you.
No, please, that's not. Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
you've blessed so many lives. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Please, that's not for.
Come on, man. I'm just trying to get my money for the wedding. I'm trying to be nice about this.
I got you.
No, I think, so it's an interesting thing. I took this class in seminary, and it was like how to hear from God.
Yes.
And one of the ultimate punchlines in the class was like, we all hear in very different ways. And I think God even speaks, again, from a kind of a Christian paradigm here, God even speaks in Scripture in very different ways. There's sort of like, God's walking with Adam and Eve, like kind of their friends, and God is sort of talking to Moses, and then there's a still small voice, and then there's kind of writing on the wall, and then there's dreams, and then it sends an angel, and like there's just a lot of different ways. There's prophets who are speaking, and how do we hear? I think that's true for a lot of us today. I think one of the things we need to discern is, how do I hear? Some people hear through tears. That they find that when they are moved to tears, this is a moment they should pay very close attention to. That when I'm not sure why I'm crying at this commercial or at this book or at this song or at this moment, but pay very close attention. And maybe that's God, or maybe that's your heart saying, there are other people who, like, their bodies talk to them. Like for me, like when I'm nervous, like I feel it on my stomach, or I'm stressed on my neck. Like some people really are sort of kinetic and feel it like that, My wife, for whatever reason, feels like when the sky is a certain color, God is sort of trying to get her attention and speaks to her there too. There are people who, like, when a white butterfly floats around, like it's like they're just different ways that God speaks. For me, in a lot of ways, it's been like my dream life. Like, I feel like it's ironic, I'm writing this book about discernment, but I feel so thick sometimes that like I have a really hard time catching the signs. And almost every big thing in my life, I had a very, very vivid dream about. I had a very intense dream about marrying my wife. We were friends. And I had this dream where like, I felt like God was saying, you're gonna marry this random person you've never looked at that way. And it changed my heart. And it shocked my friends, and it was a very, very different thing. And when I became chaplain at Penn, I had a dream about being like just sort of big stuff like that. I think ultimately, to kind of not ramble on and answer your question, is that's an interesting question to ask ourselves. How have I heard in the past? And it doesn't restrain, God can do anything. Sometimes God can speak in very different ways than we're used to. Maybe there's a question before that. Am I open to hearing? Do I believe that maybe, just maybe, something outside of me can speak to my path? It's a big jump. In a world where, like, we are kind of reason-based, I think life is more fun with a little bit of magic in it, or believing that God is in it. I think that's just a much better way of living life. Beautiful question, Doc. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, I make no promises. Oh, I'm feeling it too.
I was so excited when I read about you coming. Because it said, I can't remember if you're kind of trying to figure out where you're going or something like that. A couple of years ago, I retired, and I had the best job in the world. I loved my career was my passion. And now I'm trying to figure out where I want to go and what I want to be. And at my retirement, and all along I keep saying, I have faith that when it happens, I'll know. But I don't like the timing of it. I really don't like the timing of it. And I'm scattered. Every morning I read 3 devotionals. And 10 minutes later, I can't remember. I can't focus. And like I do Wordle, and I was doing it with my stepmother for a while. And I can't remember, so can you talk on focus? Or one of the things I think you can say you have faith, that the answer will come, but I don't like the timing. And I almost want it to be like a miracle, that it just comes down right in front of me and is there, you know? Because it seemed to happen in my career. Because I was raised in foster care, so I became a social worker.
Beautiful.
And so what else would I do? And now I'm trying to figure out, what do you do with the last third of your life, you know?
Yes.
So.
Beautiful, beautiful question. What do we do the last thing? Thank you for being here and for all you've done and are doing. A couple thoughts come to mind, and I don't have a great answer, but I'll say a couple things. There's an interesting detail about Moses that I think a lot of us miss. Have you ever seen the cartoon animated thing, The Prince of Egypt? And there's like great music in that, by the way. It's a wonderful rendition of like the Moses narrative, the Mosaic narrative. And Moses is this like strapping young Moses, and him and his brother kind of Pharaoh are kind of going at it and all that stuff. But if you read the narrative in Exodus, anyone know how old Moses was when he really became Moses? He was 80 years old, 80 years old. It's amazing, and like, they don't give the ages of a lot of people in the Bible. It's a weird detail that they decide to include, a beautiful detail they decide to include. That one is a good reminder that like it is never too late, and that's a hard job. Moses is a hard job. Callings come at a lot of different times, and there was a lot of Moses before he became Moses. 1 point. 2, sometimes like God is complicated. And sometimes it's like we're waiting for like the right, God speak, I'm being faithful, God speak. And maybe the thing God is trying to work on us is like patience. And it's a cruel teacher where like, God, I'm doing this every day, and like all the years go by, and like the point isn't to kind of pick you up and have you do another really great thing. The point is for you to spend time with me. And that's the call. And then I'll throw in a bonus kind of thing for you in 2 years because I need you to get back out on the court and stuff like that. But like, sometimes it's what's the next like occupation, job, volunteer opportunity. And sometimes the next call is something that I think the divine is trying to do in here. Sort of like final or next chapter of cultivation. You know, I got 2 years ago, I got to spend some time in India. And we were staying at Gandhi's ashram. Tomorrow is Mohandas Gandhi's birthday. Just hit me. And one thing I think we miss about Gandhi, if you haven't read a good biography, if there's like a world figure you want to study, like Gandhi is another really interesting human life to follow. You know, Gandhi sort of born in India, goes to London to study law, then goes and lives in South Africa and experiences discrimination there in like early apartheid South Africa. The discrimination not just against sort of black colored folks, but discrimination against Indian people there too. And Gandhi sort of organizes the Indian community in South Africa and pushes back and gains sort of civil rights for Indians in South Africa and becomes a world figure through that. He was a famous person for changing South African law for Indian immigrants there. An amazing thing, and is invited back to India to help us shake off the shackles of British rule in India. And if you've seen the movie about Gandhi, he sort of gets off the ship from South Africa and kind of like changes clothes and gets a staff and begins a salt march. It kind of goes right into it. And what I found out about Gandhi, Gandhi leaves South Africa, gets back to India, and spends 15 years in meditation and study at the ashram. That was his next calling. Gandhi's this like rock star who's changing countries and becomes this leader and is brought back to kind of like change India and gets quiet for 15 years. He would say that wasn't preparation, that was his next calling. It was his time of inward learning and forming the ashram. And people kind of forgot about who he was. And he's doing these experiments with fasting and nonviolence and learning, and then gets back in the game and decides that what we are going to do, we're going to protest salt taxes, this really random thing in there. And it ultimately shakes off British rule, and he becomes Gandhi. After that long period of learning and discernment. Don't wave off the long periods of discernment. They're there for a reason. They're wildly frustrating. I get it. It's terrible. I wish God would be like, next thing I want you to do, pack your bags, going right over here, and I promise you in 6 months I'm going to call you, you're going to do the next thing, plan A, B, C. Like, it just doesn't work like that. Often, for some people it does. But sometimes there's this mysterious formula of, it's quiet time. It's time on the bench, waiting. And then the call comes. I think we have time for one or two more. Oh, Dr. Joseph Valentine White.
Dr. Howard, always a pleasure, good sir, always a pleasure. When you spoke about the impact of being seen, it hit like a ton of bricks because, as you and I both know, some of the men to my left saw us and how important it was. We both work at our alma maters, and in education, I have seen and continue to see kids that don't feel seen. And I see adults that don't necessarily feel welcome or seen. And my advice, or my question is, how do you help adults see kids that they don't necessarily see? And then how can we show up for our fellow colleagues or other adults to make sure that as we are all navigating this really difficult time in life, to know that even if you're feeling like you're the only one struggling, even if you're feeling isolated, like we see you, or someone else is here for you. Because I feel that if we're constantly, whether it's us as adults or kids, feeling like we're the only one feeling, we're the only one in this moment, no matter what our challenge is, it can be really daunting. So I just want to navigate that.
You're my first mentee. really proud of you, Joe. Something that I think this is what makes you such a great educator, is that you see people, you know? And that in itself is a calling. You know, I think sometimes we think of like, what's the call? It's a profession. It is lawyer, teacher, nurse, coach, painter, like cop. Like those are calls. But then there are also these kind of like more amorphous callings. I met someone from Camden, New Jersey, and we were talking. He introduced himself as, he described himself as the world's best mentor. And he, like, quirky guy, he had a business card, and it had that on his card, like, world's best mentor. Which, in one sense, is a little, like, presumptive and kind of arrogant a little bit, but it was also, like, a beautiful calling. Like, that's what he did. He had like, a job. But what he felt called to do was to mentor young people, and he did that with his everything. I think it's very similar with sort of the calling to see other people. There are people on my block who pour into my girls. I don't know what they do. I'm not sure if they work or don't work, but like they stop my kids and they check in with them about how school is going. There's this one lady who puts money in their pockets and like extra candy at Halloween, like just loves on my kids like it's their calling. But this idea of seeing, one of the analogies that I think about is like it's like a piece of paper. And, you know, with a piece of paper, in the middle is where all the important stuff is, where the words are, notes are where we take notes, and on the side are the margins. And in the margins of a piece of paper is where we punch the holes, we staple it, we doodle, we write little notes on the side of paper. It's not important in the margins. It's where we get this phrase marginalized from, where there are individuals they grab our attention, we see them, and then there are others who are at the margins. And there are a lot of different people in different situations who feel marginalized because of their gender, their race, their faith, how they love, their ability. Like different times, different people are marginalized. I would say it's the calling of all of us to move our eyes a little bit, to see in the margins. This is, in so many ways, this is the beauty of religious leaders. This is very much Jesus. Jesus comes down and doesn't land in Jerusalem, where the religious leaders, doesn't land in Rome, where the political leaders are, but kind of like makes a life out in Nazareth, born in like little Bethlehem, and spent time in like Egypt, like really different places, and doesn't move with those in power, but is essentially like a homeless, wandering teacher who spends time with, Gandhi would sort of say, the untouchables, tax collectors, people who are sex workers, others who are people don't want to be with. He's with them, with those at the margins. And if any of us dare bear the name of Christian, we too need to be seen at the margins. Pope Francis says, a shepherd should smell like their sheep. This is such a calling, I think, of educators too. I'll give a different example. I was talking with one of the head coaches of Penn's basketball team, and he was saying, it's actually easy to coach the superstars. The kids who are starters, and you kind of get the best out of them, and they want to play. It's hard to coach the kids who don't play. The kids who are good enough to make the team, but they're number 11, and they play garbage minutes, and they're kind of there to help the team GPA sometimes, or character locker room presence, that's the hard guy to keep on the team, to kind of remind them that they are worthy of wearing this jersey. They never see minutes. But to love that kid, that's the hardest one to coach. And that's exactly why he's there. Not just to hang banners and get rings and coach the kid who's going to play professionally, but the kid who's is getting beat up in practice. He needs to coach that kid too. And that's what I think makes a really good coach, who sees The kid who doesn't really have a future in the game. Thank you, Joe. Oh. Please. Any other questions or two before we wrap? Please, sir.
Thank you, Pastor Chaz. When you mentioned the home that you were going to buy, what got my attention was your love for the water. That sound, that attraction. I want to thank you for the message that I've received. Prepare to be surprised. I see that as my daily task, to listen, not just here, but in here and what I encounter, particularly the things that I shy away from. Particularly the things I shy away from. What it is, what is it that's holding me back? What is it that attracts me? And I did have the chance to go with a group of university undergraduate students to Avila, where Santa Teresa of Avila was, and the impression I had of the castle that only holds 2,000 people is now very different, my impression, at this age than it was when I was in my early 20s. As a student and assistant professor, assistant to the professor of literature. And what intrigued me about Santa Teresa of Avila was her relationship and dialogue with St. John of the Cross.
Yes.
And the dialogue within herself and giving voice to the uncomfortable and finding her mission in discomfort. And so my question is, what advice would you have for us in our discomfort as we seek our path? In the discomfort of the moment, am I missing something?
Beautiful question. And I love this idea of being surprised. I quoted Pope Francis one more time. He said, what a gift it is to be surprised by God's calling. To be surprised. And those surprise callings are nightmares sometimes. But what a gift to be surprised. Are we missing something? I don't know. I think after the clouds pass, I think we'll be able to process the storm in a different way. It's much easier to make sense of things after they've passed. And I think the moment will affect each of our lives individually in very, very different ways. I think different seasons will emerge from this. I know students who decided to go to law school to prepare to run for office because of the moment we're in right now. People who, we have a range of undocumented students and colleagues at Penn, like a lot of universities do right now. People seeing their friends and the nightmares that their friends are going. I make no presumptions about anyone's politics, but it is a scary time for people from other countries, particularly if you're undocumented. Seeing what their friends and their families are going through has formed their vocation, seeing that they want to be immigration attorneys now. Beautiful thing. Those who sort of seen the way that different aspects are being, like they want to kind of pour in to rebuild that. Or maybe the moment creates a type of resilience in us. Or it sort of fills our wells of hope in ways we didn't know. Maybe it reminds us that there's this Pablo Neruda quote. I was talking to Joe about it earlier. Pablo Neruda, the great poet. It's a quote I keep thinking about a lot lately. It says, "You may cut down all the flowers, but you can't stop spring from coming." You may cut down all the flowers, but you can't stop spring from coming. Maybe one of the things that we get from this discomfort is a reminder that we will survive. A reminder that everything that's cut down will grow back. And that as scary as winter is, spring is coming. As painful as Friday is, Sunday's on the way, as they say. And if that's all we take out of it, that's a win right there. Reminding us that this is not the end. I'll end by saying this. You are loved. I hope you hear that. You are loved. At a time where a lot of us don't feel loved, I hope you know that people in this room love you very much. And I think there's a good God above who loves you too. And as scary as the moment is, you're not forgotten. Survive this. We win in the end. And the path will be made clear. Thank you so much for having me. It's a blessing on this church. Blessings on this church. It's been a blessing to me. And if you feel so moved, Ivy Bookshop selling the books in the back. And thank you so much for coming, everybody. You have a good night.